On this episode of Locked On Angels, Mike Trout speaks, and he does mention Artie. And Ron Washington speaks, and he does mention how the Halos have played in 2024 and thinks they'll be better in 2025. Another And the Angels did play the White Sox, and they lost. But Jack Kochanowicz did something that he's been doing in almost every start, and we're going to talk about it. It's time to get Locked On with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rival city. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. To get the Booking.com app, download it for free today.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our third season here at Locked On Angels. We're graciously, thankfully, mercifully wrapping up our third season, covering the team Monday through Friday. Of course, we'll be here through the offseason, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, talking Angels baseball with you. On today's show, we hear from Mike Trout. We hear from Ron Washington. We respond. Mike Trout calls out Artie Moreno, I guess you could say. Can my pitch get higher? I don't know. And what did Wash say about the young core and what they need to do in 2025? We'll talk about that. But Mike, can we talk about how the Angels literally dropped the ball on serving the White Sox, their 121st record-setting Major League Baseball loss? And there were some comments from our everydayers that thought, hey, what's it going to be like when the Angels serve them their record-setting loss? And I had to say, it was like, don't hold your breath. Right. They'll find a way. They will find a way. In fact, now it's a race to see, will the Angels serve the White Sox their 121st loss, or will the White Sox serve the Angels their most franchise losses coming up here soon, right?
Yeah. It wasn't Jack Kochanowicz's fault.
No,
not at
never,
all.
It never is, right?
Nope.
It never
is. This guy, John, and we'll talk about his stats in a minute, but quite honestly, if he's not in the starting rotation next year, I think he's proven himself over and over and over again. And If he's not in the starting rotation, he's the ace. This is your ace, right? I mean, looking at all the starters the Angels have, and I know Soriano's a part of that, so they might be neck and neck, but this guy goes 7 innings every single time.
Yeah.
He threw 82 pitches last night in 7 innings.
Should have gone out for the 8th, Mike.
Yes.
Should have gone out for the 8th.
Yes.
I don't care. It's Hunter Strickland's birthday. If we're playing, birthday, you get a turn. It's your birthday. Halo. That just tells you everything you need to know about the Angels, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the last week of the season. Why in the world? Why in the world does he not go out for that final inning? Why does he go out for the 8th inning?
Let him get a complete game in the easiest game that he'll have the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And let him be the pitcher of record when you serve up the White Sox 121st loss. Let the kid make some history, for crying out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. John, I want to jump to Kochanowicz's stats. I think that's probably the most important thing that we could talk about from this game. 7 innings, 3 hits, 4 Ks, no walks, and no earned runs. That just seems to be what he's constantly doing since he's come back up. Mm-hmm. The guy is minimizing damage. The guy is minimizing hits. The guy is not walking a lot of batters, not striking out a lot of batters, although 4 Ks, that's more than he's had the last few starts. He's starting to miss some bats, but he just knows what he's doing out there. That's he's one of the first pitchers in a long time that just looks like, as a young guy, who knows what he's doing out there.
A good example is in that first inning, he's taking on Luis Robert. It was a strikeout to Luis Robert, 85-mile-an-hour curveball. Gooby kind of referred to it as maybe like a slurve slider curveball kind of thing because it has so much side-to-side movement. Mike, he had an 85-mile-an-hour curveball on Luis Robert, follows it up with a 98-mile-an-hour sinker that Robert swings right through.
Yeah.
And he was even changing eye levels. He was throwing the fastball, the four-seamer up. Sometimes he gets a swing and a miss on the fastball up. He did that his last time out. But if that doesn't work, you're at least changing the eye level because you throw that sinker in at somebody's knees and they're all mixed up. So not only is he a young pitcher, not only has he come out and proven that he's very capable, not only did he go 7 innings once again, but he's pitching smart.
Yeah.
This is a smart guy who doesn't have a large tool set, I guess you could say, with a pitch repertoire. But we've seen it. He's learned along the way. He's figured things out. He knows what makes him effective. He's done everything right. And I think that he will have ace potential somewhere down the road. And again, I've penciled him into my starting rotation for 2024, certainly.
I've chiseled him in, John. He's in stone for me. And let me take it back to Ron Washington for just a moment. Like, why are you managing this game like it's April?
Yeah.
Why are you managing this game like it matters, right? Like,
right.
Okay, so we're going to have them go 7, and then we're going to have somebody come in the 8th, and then we'll have a closer. Stop it.
Right.
You don't need to manage like that right now. It's the last freaking week of the season.
Yeah.
Don't manage like that. Hey, this guy has 82 pitches. See what he does in the 8th inning. Oh,
right.
Yeah, that last inning is a little bit questionable. Had some long flyouts, whatever. Like, don't even spend time even thinking about that stuff, John. Like, he had in the bottom of the 7th, he had a flyout. He gave up a base hit, and then he had a ground ball double play. That's pretty dominant. Like, let him come back out again. You don't need to run the bullpen out there if you don't have to run the bullpen out there. Like, again, this isn't April. It's the Chicago White Sox. You have over 90 losses as the Angels. Let's see what Kochanowicz can do. Let him go one more inning. The guy hasn't gone into the 8th inning. Let him go one more inning. Let's see what he can do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's funny because the top of the 5th happened and there were 2 outs. Moniak hits this high pop-up, and none of the White Sox players catch it.
Yes.
It looked like Jonathan Cannon, I'm sorry, called off somebody, felt like Vaughn called him off at the last minute, and nobody caught it. And so it was like, oh boy. And Wayne Randazzo says, folks, that's how you lose 120 games. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Moniak steals a bag later. The sell the team chants start up is really hilarious. And I love what Wayne had to say. If the owner of the team gets to hold the World Series trophy first, then it's only fitting that the owner wears 120 losses as well. And it was hilarious to me because moments later, innings later, Jack Lopez, makes it 2-0 Angels with his first career home run. Then there's this high pop-up after Strickland can't get through the inning. Brock Burke should have gotten out of the inning with the Angels lead intact. It was 2-1 at this point. This high pop-up, I don't know if the wind was blowing. I don't know what Lopez saw, but it falls and a run score. Immediately Benintendi hits a base hit, so that makes it 3-2 White Sox. Nothing happens other than a Moniak walk in the top of the 9th. So the Angels end up losing this one 3-2. And the ultimate irony, Mike, is that you can go, the White Sox guys let that pop-up fall down. Oh my gosh, no wonder they lost 120 games. And then the exact same thing happens to the Angels later on in the game. It's like they fail at failing, Mike. It's like George Costanza. They can't do anything right. Half the stadium wants the Angels to beat the White Sox so that they can be there for this record-setting loss. And I tweeted from Super Halo Bros. I said, sorry, White Sox fans, the Angels just can't do anything right, it looks like. So it's just hilarious. The ultimate, this is irony, not Alanis Morissette irony, because a lot of that's coincidence. This is the ultimate irony. The very thing we laughed at the White Sox at doing, the Angels do it 3 innings later.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for you. Would love you're going to have to read between the lines a little bit. You're going to have to see the nuance a little bit. Wayne Randazzo has had some really strong things to say about Major League Baseball, about Major League Baseball leadership, when Shohei Ohtani's gambling stuff came out and baseball, how they handled that, some of the cheating scandals in the past. Then he drops that line, if the owner of the team gets to hold the World Series trophy first, then it's only fitting that the owner wears the 120 losses as well. Mm-hmm. He is on Bally Sports. They do work for the Angels, right? We know about the media-driven narrative with the Angels. Is that Wayne Randazzo? And is that his veiled attempt at maybe saying something about Artie Moreno? Like, this team's lost 120 and that owner has to wear it. By the way, do you think that that's what that is?
Mike, my answer is yes.
Okay.
Because in the right after moment that Randazzo said that, Gooby, bless his heart, we love Gooby. We love how special he is and how he treats the fans, and we love his analysis that he brings. But I have to say that right after Randazzo said that, Gooby brought up, and a lot of guys wear the loss as well, the coaching staff and the players and So he tried to make it a little more flowery,
sure,
if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And so to me, it felt like the counterbalance to what Randazzo had just said. But Randazzo's honest, and he's not going to call out the ownership. Obviously, he wants a job.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But you're right. He's not shy about his criticisms. He wasn't shy about his criticism last year either.
Right.
And the Angels were in a much better position. So to have that comment about the White Sox and the ownership, and it sort of feel like a veiled thing at the Angels. Look, the Angels are about to set a record too. If they hit 96 losses, then they will have set the franchise record for losses.
Yep.
If they hit 95, they will have tied the franchise record for losses. So it's not like we're sitting here laughing at the White Sox. The Angels are just in a nearly worse position. It's not the most losses all time.
Right.
It's not an embarrassing season like the White Sox had, but it's been pretty embarrassing, and it's been pretty crappy to be an Angels fan this year. And for them to be this close to setting the franchise loss record, given where they've been the last few years with the people that they've had on this roster. And look, we can go on and have a further discussion about, well, who's at fault and and is it the coaches? Is it the players aren't good enough? All that stuff. I'm sure everybody here, our everydayers, know what our opinion is about the play on the field, the players growing and developing, the coaches who, yes, the results aren't there, but they're the ones helping these guys get better. I mean, Zach Neto doesn't have this season, if not for Ron Washington and the coaching staff and whatnot, because he would look a lot like he did last year, right? And that's the long and short of it. It all goes back to ownership, who put this team in this situation, much like Reinsdorf has put the White Sox in this situation as well. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the White Sox again at 4:40 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM or the SXM app. All you have to do is search Angels. Coming up, Mike Trout speaks out again, and this time he addressed Artie Moreno without necessarily saying Artie's name. We'll share his comments and our responses to that coming right up.
This episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. You can explore those U.S. cities that you've always secretly wanted to learn more about, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You just might find your perfect stay, and even in your baseball rival city, perhaps during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball competition stadium cuisine. And with Booking.com, you can find the stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the United States, you can go incognito to your baseball rival city. No matter what team you're rooting for in the postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any city. Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL fans, the season is already firing on all cylinders. You might be up a couple of wins. Your team might be down a couple of wins. Maybe they've split the difference. They're 2-1 or 1-2. But you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you're thinking, hey, I feel like this is a good bet. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the exact same page in the app where you place your bets. So you got everything side by side there for you. So you know you're getting the best information, the most up-to-date stats to make the best bets possible. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your very first $5 bet. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com is where you can find it. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, and this is Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. And we want to invite you to the Ohapi All-Star Bowl. Logan Ohapi putting on an incredible fundraising event. He's invited some of his friends, some of his family, and invited us to come and bowl with him. We're going to raise some money for Corey's Promise, a nonprofit organization that helps to offset the financial burden that families endure when their children are battling cancer. So come and hang with us on Saturday, October 5th at Cal Bowl in Lakewood from 1 to 4 p.m. Again, we're going to bowl with each other. We're going to bowl with the players. We're going to at least get one game with them, which will be exciting. Plus, we'll get to interact, and it'll be a really great day. You can actually join us that day and grab your tickets by clicking the link in the episode description. And then when you do, go to the checkout. Use our promo code BROS, B-R-O-S, at checkout, and you're going to get $50 off your ticket. We're honored to be a part of this incredible event, and we would love our everydayers to come and join us on Saturday, October 5th at Cal Bowl from 1 to 4 p.m.
Mike, Andy McAuliffe of The Athletic spoke with Mike Trout recently. Trout said some interesting things about the Halos. He talked about his future and what the Angels org can do to get better. First, Trout admitted that his performance on the field isn't to his standard. That included some comments about why he was striking out so much more. Angels hitting coach Johnny Washington said Trout's trying to find similarities to what he did when he was the best player in the game. When you find commonalities of what he did before, we compare to now and piece things together. Trout said, I think if I can get close to that, we should see a better version of Mike Trout. He said in reference to his old self, it's in there. I really haven't felt right at the plate in the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know why that is. There are some things that I think it is, but I'm not going to get into any specifics. I think there's some things over the years where I just created a habit and I've got to get out of that habit. He did say one specific later on in the interview. He said, sometimes when your head's moving so much, you're not in the right spot. You get defensive. Instead of being up there thinking you're going to drive the ball, you're just trying to see it. Mike, before you continue, can I just say how refreshing it is, the fact that Johnny Washington, Angels hitting coach, actually spoke to the media?
Yeah.
Unlike last year where there was a media lockdown. Everyone's too critical. You can't say anything bad about the Angels. Yeah. They all said it like that too, by the way. But yeah, it was refreshing to see some insight into what they're doing to help get Mike Trout right again.
Yeah, so thank you, Johnny Washington, for talking to the media. We appreciate that so much. In regards to Trout's health, we learned in April that he was given the option to DH all year long instead of getting surgery. Trouty said, I felt the best option was for me to get right, which I think we all agree with. He also denied that he elongated his recovery from injuries, that elongated recovery had anything to do with his hesitancy to play. When asked about that, he said, nah, and then he repeated it quickly about 7 more times. Nah. So I think you could just tell he was like, no, come on. Like, don't you know who I am? Trout even mentioned
they have to ask it because there's all these bozos online that say, oh, he doesn't want to play. He just wants to get his money. So of course they ask it. And so it's good that Trout got to shut it down.
Well, and I'm sure he reads that stuff or hears that stuff too, right? And so I love that he was like, come on, that's the stupidest question I've ever heard in my life and the stupidest statement, which I agree with. He also mentioned moving to other parts of the field, on other positions. So he said, when stuff's not going your way, you got to make adjustments. If moving over, specifically talking about left field, and the statistics say that the corner outfielder spot helps you with your legs, then that's something that you've got to explore. He also said, I think if I'm on the field and playing my game, then all of the other great stuff will follow.
Yeah. And you know what part that stuck out to me was the fact that somebody suggested to him, or they talked about it in the organization, is him slimming down, which is like the one thing that you and I have been screaming over and over on this show is it's not freak injuries. It's not, or I should say it is freak injuries. It's not repeat injuries. It's not the same back issue over and over again. It's different injuries. And if you've tried everything like Trout says that he has, then I think the only thing left to do is to cut some muscle weight. It's not like he's not a fat guy. He's a muscly guy, but that's a lot of weight to carry on your body. And so I think that's a significant piece of the portion as well.
I think it really probably needs to be a focus on getting his body very flexible, right? I think like Trout should be doing yoga all off season, right? Like he should be in that season of just stretching out his muscles and really getting very flexible. Trout should be able to do Ozzie Smith backflips when he gets out onto the field, right? Like that's who he should be. Now, John, a big piece of this interview was that Trout made a comment about Artie without saying Artie's name. When asked about the team's future and ability to contend, Trouty said this: a couple of additions in the offseason could make a big difference, but it's all up to the owner. I think that's where we're at right now. And then when asked why he's speaking about this more now than he has in the past, he said, it's been 10 years since we've made the playoffs, and I think somebody has to do something about it. I think the fans want to see playoff baseball like everybody else. Now, Joe Maddon was interviewed and talked to, and he made some interesting comments about the Halos, and it might just be sour grapes or it might just be true. But Johnny, share with us what former manager Joe Maddon said.
Yeah, he said, if I had one wish, it would be that he'd be able, Mike Trout, to participate with a team that has a chance to get to the playoffs, a team that's able to rest him on a consistent basis, even if he may not want that, or put him in a position that takes a little stress off of him just to get him on the field. And he said that possibility, according to Joe Maddon, is unlikely in Anaheim. He said it's not easy with everything that's gone on there over the years. It's just been tough. It's a tough place to be right now. Now, Trout did say he didn't want to go anywhere, wants to be in Anaheim. And then when he was asked about how difficult it would be to move Trout, another rival executive said it would be incredibly difficult to move Trout at this point, saying that the Angels will have to at least eat half that contract if they wanted to move Trout off the team.
Yeah. John, is it significant that Mike Trout actually pointed out the ownership again? Because remember, when he talked about what happened in the offseason, that he was talking with Artie Moreno, and he said, I was pushing for a few guys, and they really didn't do anything. And now we hear him really, like, specifically not dancing around it. Didn't mention Artie, but he didn't dance around it. He said, that's up to ownership, man. Ownership's got to do something to get us better. So is that significant to you? Do you think that that's a step in the right direction in light of our conversation yesterday about Artie's ego?
Let's put it this way. Mike Trout is not one to stir the pot, right? And he's never been one to stir the pot. He gets along with everybody on the field. Very rarely have you seen him in a confrontation with anybody. The other day I watched the was it Yordan Ventura for the Royals, who rest in peace, but he got in a fight, or he tried to badmouth Trout about nothing really, and then there was a big brouhaha. That's like the only time I've seen Trout get involved in something. And then even when he's spoken to the media, he's never really pushed the envelope. Mike, this is Mike Trout's version of, hey, stop that. You know what I mean? It's George McFly. Hey, you, get your dang hands off. Like, this is Mike Trout's version of actually stirring the pot. And it's not going to be a table flip or anything like that. It's going to be, well, that's on ownership. If they want this team to be better, if they don't want to miss the playoffs again, then that's on ownership. Yep. And I realize he didn't use Artie's name. It was a soft punch to the ego. And I would not even call it a punch. I would call it a flick. And don't get me wrong, he has the right to trash this organization, to trash Artie Moreno, to trash what's gone on there his whole career. He has every right to do that.
Right.
But he won't, not because he's soft or he's afraid to, but because some people just don't have that bone in their body. And to see him inch into the pool, dip a toe into the pool a little bit more than he has, I say, you know what? It's a start, and it's better than saying nothing.
I think Trout's an honorable dude. I think that's why he may struggle with, like, really calling somebody out. He doesn't want to cross a line of disrespect. John, I think I'm wired similar to Mike Trout, not athletically, but maybe personally, because I've had those moments where I've had to respond to the nasty email, and I thought mine was probably really strong, and I let my wife read it, and she was like, "Nah, man, wasn't strong at all." Right? Like, and so
soft.
Because you feel like you're being really aggressive, but you're not. Yeah. But here's why I'm bringing all of this up and comparing myself to Mike Trout. This is the only time I'll ever do that. Is because of people that are wired like Trout. eventually what happens is that there's this slow like trickle of little nudges, little pushes, little moments, and then that slow trickle will leap to an explosion. And so I will not be surprised if Trout is around next couple of years. I will not be surprised even if it's this off season where Trout just lets
him in the
the
dugout.
expletives fly. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think it'll be privately. I think we might have him in a moment where, because he's had to emotionally process his injuries this year. We saw the tears. I think there's going to be a moment, especially if the Angels don't do anything this offseason, where we're going to see Trout literally throw his hands up. We're going to see exasperated Mike Trout to where I don't think that he's going to hold back, where I think he'll go, Artie, bro, you got to do something, and say it in the media, because obviously he's not listening to him in private.
Yeah. Mike, the only pushback I have here is, we love Mike Trout. I've always loved Mike Trout. He's got to stay on the field. And I think that's a big part of this problem is you can't be a voice that criticizes what ownership is doing if you yourself can't be on the field to help this quiet
team. Yep.
And so I think that's also a tension that he recognizes as well. I think he lives in that where it's like, yeah, I want to be outspoken, but also part of this is my fault too.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where Mike Trout sits right now.
Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Game Time. They are the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, and it makes getting tickets even faster and easier, and they're obsessed with helping you save money with your tickets, and you don't even have to go see the Angels. You could actually go to concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more.
Somewhere worth it for a change.
Somewhere where you actually want to spend money. You could save, when you have their app, they have exclusive in-app flash deals, saves you money on select seats ahead of the game or whatever event you're going to. They got zone deals where you choose the section, Game Time chooses the seat, and of course, all in pricing. You just toggle that on in the app, and that feature shows up the total at the very end. There's no surprises, no surprise checkout fees at checkout when you do check out. And then there's a panoramic view that you can check out also. And then the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time, is going to credit you 110% of the difference. And they also, I love that Game Time has this ticket coverage thing that they have. I love it because as a dad, as a husband, like if you make a mistake or you can't go or something happens, like your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. John, that's why I use Game Time, because they're just so kind to you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the app right now and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game Time.
Mike, this season, Ron Washington has spoken often about the importance of his young players getting through a full season for the first time in their career. He spoke to Rhett Bollinger, who puts out a great Angels newsletter on behalf of MLB.com. Rhett does a great job covering the team, and I was really interested to read the latest newsletter that came out yesterday or Monday, and this is where the discussion with Wash came from about the young players. He said he's proud that O'Hoppe, Neto, and Sean O'Ell have made it through a season healthy, despite some of the ups and downs. He said he's also glad that Taylor Ward, who's played 150 games, is the only other everyday position player to make it through the season. He said Wash said it's something that they have to go through to understand how to get through it. We started in February with a vision of who we thought we were going to be out there and what we expected. No matter what these guys showed up every single day. That builds character. It means a lot to the teammates. You know how to know that they're dependable, and they all dealt with issues throughout this season.
Wash also said that he believes that things would have been much different this season if key players like Trout and Rendon, I'm laughing at John's face for the audio side listeners, Rengifo, Drury, Sandoval stayed healthy. He said, I just wish we wouldn't have broken down, because whether you believe me or not, we'll ask that question in a second, we'd be in much better shape than we are right now. John, do you believe him?
Do I believe that they would be in better shape? Yeah, Mike, they wouldn't be 63 and 94. They would be 70 and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, much better shape, right?
Yeah.
The truth is that this was always going to be the year. It was inevitable. It was like Thanos, right? It was always going to be this way whether you had Trout, whether you had Rendon, and it drives me crazy when every year for the past 5 years, we said, well, if Trout can stay healthy, and if Rendon can stay healthy, and if this happens, and if that happens, and that's what drives us crazy as fans, is we knew what this was going to be. And a lot of us were okay with that. You and I, at no expectations. Yes, we had our moments where this team frustrated the crap out of us. And then we celebrated the little wins along the way, knowing that there weren't going to be a lot of big wins along the way. And that's really what this season has been about. And so I get it. He's a manager. He has to do angel speak and everything's sunshine and rainbows and Halo land. But to say like, well, this year would have been a whole lot different if everyone had just stayed healthy. No, it wouldn't. No. Yeah. And again, it's not because you did anything wrong, Ron Washington. It's not because anybody did anything wrong. It was just the reality of the situation. You asked Reed Detmers to throw 180 innings. You asked Patrick Sandoval to throw 180 innings. They've never done it in their career at all. And so this was always going to be the outcome.
Yeah. He did say that next year, the guys that he's mentioned, Logan, Nolan, Zach, Griffin, Tyler, and Taylor Ward, in 2025, they're going to have some high expectations on them. But he also said that this team's going to need to add more in order to contend next year. John, second time in one day that we've heard some big names on the Angels talk about adding more, right? And I think that that's a fair assessment. I just wonder if ownership, Perry Manassian, if they're listening, more specifically, if ownership's listening, because I think Perry would go and do what's necessary.
Yeah.
But we'll already do what is necessary, and that's where the big question mark comes up. So I find it interesting that Mike Trout has said something, and in kind of the same context, Ron Washington says the very same thing.
That's the thing is, for as much criticism as I gave Ron Washington's comments about like, well, if we just had this, if we just had these guys healthy, this was always a development year.
Yeah.
You can't look excited for 2025 if 2024 doesn't happen the way it did. Ohapi needed a full season. Neto needed a full season. Sean Noel, heck, Taylor Ward finally gets to play a full season. I know you and I have been more than frustrated with Taylor Ward, but they all made it through the season. And you can't be excited about 2025 if this year doesn't happen the way that it did. And so what I think Ron Washington really is pointing to here is that these guys made it to the finish line, and now you have to build on that. You can't coast on what you did this year, which I think they can. I think these young guys can get better. Shoot me if you think that's untruths. My right hand, no, this is my left hand. Anyway, I'm saying this right now. These guys can get better. These young guys will get better, but they needed 2024 so that they could have some promise in 2025. And he's right, Mike. We looked at it. The supporting cast, I think, is there. If you add the impact bats and you don't crossing fingers in your toes and all that stuff to make sure Mike Trout is healthy, I think that they could have something special this year. They just have to do the right thing over the offseason if they want to compete.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. It's on YouTube and available wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show, get in the comment section, like, and subscribe to the channel. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Johnny, a lot of people will say that Mike Trout is the leader of this team. I think a lot of the players would say that as well. But there was a comment that was made by a few of the players about another player that we're going to talk about tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
I'm like one of those the news podcasts. All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
We're now required to talk during this moment because people listen all the way through.
And they're the real everydayers who listen for these messages.
So